Okay, we're waiting on Lori and Angie. Carol, you see that stack of stuff right in front of you where your phone is?
That's my stuff.
That's your stuff?
Is it right there?
Where did this and the buyer's thing
I guess
stop?
it is, okay, so I guess it is.
Okay.
I thought you were giving it to me.
I should have explained.
We are live streaming today for some of our Georgetown folks. So we're going to start doing that for our quarterly meetings and any time that we can. I know it's on our list to get that Georgetown TV hung. So then if people want to come collaborate together in Georgetown and then watch it on the TV there in that conference room, that will be an option, because sometimes it's nice just to even have a small group like today, because then the Georgetown folks that watch it there can also have their conversations as we're doing things. So today, Carol and I thought it would be a good idea just to talk a little bit about buyers' representation and how that's changing in the market. So have you all seen, who in here, or maybe I should say has not seen, the email from Bluegrass Realtor saying you can put 0 now for buyer compensation? Has everybody seen that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, that's all right. That's why you're here.
I haven't seen it, but you told me, because I'm
Yes.
technically not getting emails yet.
Yes, yes. So this is Tony. She's joined us from Minneapolis. She's been, or Minnesota.
Yep.
Minneapolis. She has been selling there, and her family just relocated. So she has come from a market where it is not typical to always see that 3%, correct?
Correct.
So why don't you start off today and tell us a little bit about how that worked in Minnesota.
Maybe I'll say how I started working with the
Okay.
average real estate agent, and then kind of how I approached it.
Okay, yes, wonderful.
I guess a little bit of a caveat is I came from a position where my family did not necessarily rely on my income, which was a beautiful place to come from to begin with getting into real estate. So it was very typical to see 2.7, 2.3%. And so it never got more than 5% typically in Minnesota. But it was also very common to see 1% on the buyer side. And that started to get more and more prevalent as I over the last couple of years. And the issue that I started to see within that actually was that I did have agents that I thought were very good that would then steer their people away from those properties. And so I don't know everybody else's opinion on what's going on with the lawsuit, but from what I experienced, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And even some of the things that I started seeing also was there were brokers or more often than not it would be builders that would provide additional incentive to realtors, but none of that had to be disclosed to the buyers. And so the real estate agents would then start getting compensated an extra $2,000, $3,000 if they would give their contract to these specific places, but then the buyers would have no idea what they're also being compensated on the other side. So I did see it as a big issue where I came from. And one of the things that I specifically did from the very beginning on the listing side was I found it was my job as the listing agent to find the buyer. That was my primary goal. And so I flipped it around, and what I would do is I would heavily market all the time to buyers, and not necessarily to become a buyer's agent, but so that I could provide something to my listing agents immediately, or my listings. And so I would say, I know you're interested in selling your property, and I know that your sister's a real estate agent. What if I could bring you 4 buyers before you even list it that would possibly be interested? Is that something that would be of value to you? And so I would kind of turn it around from the very beginning, and that's how my business grew. I sold almost $4 million in my first year that way. And I did a lot of listings, but it was mainly because I was seeking out buyers first. And some of the buyers, majority of the buyers actually already had listing or buyer's agreements with other agents, but it didn't matter to me. I would just call those agents, and a lot of times it was a little bit of contention at first, but I would just explain, I have zero desire to gain your buyer, but I will be then showing the property. I will be the one to walk you guys through. I will be the one to help you do this, especially if it wasn't technically on the MLS yet. I would be at the home with people, even if they brought their agent along.
So were you the listing it then?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yep. Even when I was the listing agent, I heavily marketed towards buyers all the time. I wasn't marketing to get listings. My goal was to find as many buyers as possible first. And so with this lawsuit that came about and buyers not being represented, I actually don't think I'll change my business at all. And one of the things that I would explain even to the people that I would list their properties is that you're technically not paying for their agent anyways. The buyer is technically paying for both sides of it because they're the one needing to bring the money to the table anyways in the end. So although you can look at it as if your equity is being taken from, your house is worth a certain amount with that commission already built in there. And so coming from that part of it and turning it around instead of saying, well, you're taking my money because I'm paying for the agents, well, yes, technically part of it on the paperwork, on the closing disclosure, it looks like that, but who's the one actually paying for that? It's the mortgage for the buyer, right?
The value of the property is the value of the property, whether there's a commission involved or not.
Yes.
Right.
And when you talk to people who do sell their property off market, they are more willing to sell it for less. And why is that? Because they think that they don't need to pay for the commission. Well, then it just supports that argument even more that it's your equity that is paying for or it's the buyer's mortgage that's paying for it, not so much your equity, because you're already downgrading the equity of that. I said a lot. I don't know if that means
That's great.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I think you said that you were showing properties sometimes without it being on your MLS.
Yes.
Right? Are we allowed to do that?
Well, that was the one thing that I got from that, and Carol, you probably did too, is that before it was even listed, she was showing it to buyers that she has found.
Well, that would be like a for sale by owner.
Technically,
Yeah.
it would be classified as that.
Yeah.
And that way it would just be an agreement, and that was something that my brokerage, or like, they understood what I was doing.
Right.
And this is something that was very different too, is I was the only performing agent in my brokerage. And so I think I had a little bit more leeway to do things differently because he was like, you're bringing in stuff, just do it, you know? And it wasn't, I was still following all of the rules, it just wasn't, he trusted that I wasn't cutting him out of anything, or that I wasn't doing anything unethical, and that everybody was on the same page, and
You just got creative
yes,
within the boundaries.
yes. And I needed to, as a brand new agent coming in 2021, because agents were a dime a dozen, and then houses were flying off of the shelf.
And buyers
anyway.
were everywhere.
And buyers were everywhere. Yeah.
Okay. Questions for Tony? Anybody have any thoughts they want to share?
Didn't you have people, like buyer's agents, try to get more commission? I mean, most of us would say, no, 1%, I won't do it. Or like I said, you just said, like, they wouldn't show the house. A lot of agents would be just like, oh.
Yeah, what was happening to them?
Yes. Okay, so this is where I might ruffle a little bit of feathers. I think it's incredibly unethical, and I think it's unfair, and I think that's the reason why the real estate industry is in the position that they're in. Because when you come into it, and again, to preface, I'm coming from a place of, I am not specifically the one supporting my family. So I understand the concept of, but I deserve to be paid. 100% you deserve to be paid for what you're doing. The issue comes in is when you cannot explain the value that you're bringing to them, right? And so you can negotiate. It's all negotiable. The issue comes in when we're the ones saying, well, this is what it's supposed to be. This is the number it needs to be at. This is the industry standard. That's where these antitrust lawsuits are coming in, right?
Because you can't say it's an industry standard, can you?
No.
You're not supposed to, but everybody says that. Or agents will get upset because it is at a 1%, which is where my issue comes in with it, because why is it at 1%? It's because we've done a really poor job of providing an explanation of the value that we bring. And so we, in my opinion, with all of this, is that the conversation needs to start as, what have we been doing wrong to get ourselves in this position, and then how do we solve that problem? And if, as a brokerage, we can figure that out and start marketing in that way, that's what's gonna set everybody apart. Is the ones that recognize what has been.
Showing our worth.
Well, and that's the more knowledge you have. It's just like I was helping one of the new agents with negotiate. He's writing his first offer, and he was telling me his buyers wanted to come in actually about 20,000 under the price, and I said, this is where you start out and you negotiate with your buyer and you look at the comps and how far off percentage-wise did the other comps sell, and you go in and you explain, they're gonna throw your offer out. You're gonna get a better counter offer if you go in within 2.5% or 3% of the list price. And then you will be set up to give a good counter, or they may go ahead and accept it if your offer is clean enough. So you take out the contingencies you can take out, still representing your buyer. So that's adding value. You start negotiating. You don't start negotiating an offer with the seller after it's written. You start with your buyer explaining the market. Okay, when you list a property today, I'm going on a listing appointment Saturday to a past client. I'm going to say, now this will be my first time looking at the house, so I'll make it a two-stop. But when I discuss the commission, I'll say my office charges 3%. I'm going to recommend that you pay 3%, or that we offer you offer 3% to the selling office. But if they say, well, how about 1%? I said, well, we can start there. It's kind of like if they want to overprice the house. And you say, well, we can start there, but the market's going to speak, because agents are motivated by money. This is how they make their living. We don't know what their split is with their office. It's none of our business.
But that's also where you, I think, come in and explain why you pay them that 3%, the value that they're gonna bring to the transaction.
And not only that, but if it's a house that, you know that the buyer's a first-time buyer, they're gonna be getting a first-time buyer loan, they can't finance that in, and they're probably, especially if it's 100% financing, where are they gonna get the money to pay the agent?
They're gonna walk away from that.
They're not gonna look at that house.
Are we allowed to say stuff like that?
Yes,
We are.
yeah, you're educating.
But it's the truth.
It's the truth. So just explain that to them. This is where you've got to add value to the transaction, and that's your knowledge and your skill.
So the other part of it too is, I'm guessing when they sell a house, they need to purchase another one.
Yeah.
Do they want to be on the other side of that transaction where they're an unrepresented buyer? I think that's the other thing to bring into the piece.
Are they gonna do it themselves? Do they expect?
Right. They know what to do.
So then you need to be able to go through the pitfalls of being unrepresented.
Yes.
And so you need to have that knowledge, and this is where we need to come up, and that's why we kind of wanted to meet today and go over this, so that we can start collaborating together and create, we can create something to go along with our buying and listing steps, the forms that Dylan has in there, as like an additional piece that goes over the value and the pitfalls of being unrepresented. I think it's important that we have something that our clients can look at and see and read, because a lot of times we can tell them this, but then they need that visual later.
Right, and they're not gonna remember, because it's overwhelming anyway to them.
Right.
And they're not gonna listen, and then they're gonna forget it. But I think that's great if we have some kind of
Additional
Are we seeing
marketing
it happen
piece.
yet? Are we seeing
I have a
it?
real life example that happened this week. I was on, I love Facebook Marketplace, I buy a lot of stuff there, and of course just flipping through the houses, there was a for sale by owner. It was beautiful, 6-bedroom, I mean, it was a gorgeous listing. But, so I just flipped through real quick, of course looking for listed by, or the flex link or whatever, where it's listed, or an agent name, but there wasn't one. So I sent her a message, and I was just like, hey, your house is gorgeous, like, if you need any help representing it, you know, I suggest, you know, better pay, or just whatever, like, and, she sent me a message back, she said, actually, it is listed with so-and-so agent, and, but I really appreciate you reaching out, I just don't think she's marketing it the way that I want to, and I just immediately wrote back, I was like, I have to apologize, I'll scan the listing, I didn't know you were already represented, I never want to talk bad about another agent, I'm sure she's, but I did look through the listings for you, I looked it up on Flex, I think she's doing everything it looked like a good listing, so I didn't even think about it, I just was like, you know, it's fine, I told her the market is really tough, average days on market, you know, it's that weird season, I think it will sell. And she was just adamant about, like, no, she's not marketing it at all, so I asked her to say it, look, well, turns out the commission is 2%.
Is it here in Lexington?
It's in Lexington, and
There you
it's
go.
2%. And so whenever I saw that, I was like, I took a screenshot and I thought about like, but she's represented, so I can't tell her anything.
Right.
So I was like, I'm not gonna go there. I just deleted the message. So I'm sure if the other agent found out that I was talking to her about
Yeah,
it.
but you didn't say anything.
No, I didn't say anything to her.
Well, and not only that, the other.
But I'm sure the
agent-
other agent knows too. It was with the brokerage. I can't remember even who the agent
Well,
was.
did they explain the
I'm sure they
listing
did.
contract, because
But
that
it
seller's
makes
not
total
supposed.
sense.
Yeah, not supposed
Yeah.
to advertise it out.
Well,
Yeah,
right,
that's
okay, but
supposed
why
to
is she marketing it herself?
Yeah.
See, that's
Because
a big
her
no-no.
agent's not doing it, because
Right.
she's getting paid 2%, and so, I get it.
The listing agent was getting 2%?
Well, I'm sure she's.
Most likely.
Most likely, she took the listing, because, you know,
Or
so
she's
I
a-
wanted to tell her, well, you're not paying your listing agent, and you're also not paying a buying agent. You're listing, you know, you're marketing it yourself, and you can't
Is it
figure out.
total of 2%?
It just said on Flex, you know, to commit, to
Right.
selling.
For buyers.
Like,
To the
2%.
buyer's side. Yeah.
And I was like, well, why, okay, she's like, we're not
Yeah, but
even
her
showing.
agent was maybe 3%.
She could be.
Because they could have
But
agreed
it's
to
a brokerage,
5%.
yeah.
The broker's handling all this.
But I
because-
assume because she's not marketing it, you know, she's like, cause she said specifically, I don't think she's doing anything to market the property. She just threw it up there and, you know, and I was like, well, you have an open house scheduled, you know,
Well,
but
in the market.
whenever I saw that, I was like, you know, it's coming together. So maybe that does have something to do with it, maybe it is part of the market, but it kinda helps.
So, you know, that could be like, you talk to someone, I don't understand why my house isn't selling.
Mhm.
You know, reducing the buyer's rep commission is just like having it overpriced.
Yeah.
You know,
Is there a
you-
way to go, would you just have to go through every listing that sells and see like what sells for 2% and then see?
And
like,
you
then
could,
take
you
the
probably could
average?
and see how many days that one was on the
Like the
market
average is on
versus.
market versus people who offer.
But
to-
now, can we still, because, you know, we've done this before, we were like over in Madison County. They never offered
No.
2%, but we would try to write it in, but a lot of times they would say, nope.
I've written it in
I'm
before
awesome.
and have been successful, but then like just recently, I have one pending with some buyers and they offered 2.5 and I tried to write it in and they kicked it out. And I'm like, I get it, you know, so I didn't push anymore.
Right, and we don't want our buyers to get, because if they want that house, they want that house. At the end of the day, they don't care what we're making, I'm sorry, but
They don't.
we've been doing this a long time. They don't, I mean, oh, I won't buy that house for you because I want you to get paid. That's my favorite house in the whole United States of America. Let's go look at something else where you can get paid. Because people are nasty, or they can be.
Well, they can be, you know, and so I think every situation is going to be unique, and that's where the negotiating comes in, and that's where, you know, at some point in time, if you want to go after a higher commission, you're almost going to have to plead your case to that other agent to take it back to the seller. Listen, I'm going to communicate with you every step of the way. I'm always going to be available. Like, you know, all of these things, it's going to hold us accountable. And that's where some agents floating around in this world are not accountable. We've
That may be a good thing,
all
wouldn't it?
engaged with those a time or two. And so it becomes more and more important that you are professional in everything you do, in all of your marketing, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of that stuff must maintain a very professional appearance. You know, what other agents think of you in a transaction is going to be more important. You know, I think there's those, I think it's through Rate My Agent or something where you can rate the other agent on the other end of a transaction. That's going to become more valuable to sell yourself. So, and if you start, I mean, there's so many things like that we can start doing to help build the reputation, because that's what it's going to be based on in order to get you paid on that other side of the buyer transaction.
So you're saying when we go on a listing appointment, my advice to you is to offer the buyer's agent,
I would say,
and that's okay for us to say that, right?
yeah.
See, anymore you gotta watch everything you say.
Well, you can even start with saying, traditionally, this is what has been offered. There's been a lot of changes going on.
But we have
in
to
real
make
estate.
sure we say at our brokerage. Cause
Well,
can't that
you
get
know,
us in trouble if we don't
Just
say?
traditionally nationwide, the both sides come out of the seller's closing
Oh, I
distribution.
thought you meant the percentage.
You don't say anything about percentage
I
at
thought
all.
you meant the percentage.
Yeah, just say traditionally this is how it's been, and there's been some changes going on in real estate. And so what we're seeing is some people are offering less, some people are offering more. My recommendation to you would be this, and this is why. And so don't
Let's
even,
get people in
Because-
here.
yeah, like don't even,
Yeah, because traditionally, the commission to the buyer's agent was paid by our office to the,
Yeah.
to the seller's
To the seller.
Well, and
office.
so many
And
people don't
that's
even
the
know about
difference.
this.
No.
Either.
and this is what's gonna be
Right, don't
annoying,
we-
because
don't
they
we
don't need
not
to
know?
know. And now
Yeah.
it's just gonna have a whole bunch
Yeah.
more information.
how
So
do
many people are not, they're gonna be like traditionally, like,
Well,
what,
like,
you
when-
know.
An opportunity to.
Now, I've always explained,
Because they don't fully understand it.
Yeah, that's true too.
What'd you say?
So a lot of people are gonna use this because then they read it as a headline and then they're gonna say, oh, it's an opportunity to pay less for selling a house.
Yeah.
When they don't
It's the
understand-
truth.
They don't
Yeah,
understand all the
it's
terms.
right.
They don't understand all of what we do.
So that
You
becomes,
have to explain it to them.
that, right, and that becomes a value,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So educating yourself on what's going on in the market and staying attuned to the industry, and then being able to educate your buyer, your seller, all of that is becoming more and more important. Your designations, that is going to help set you apart. You know, designations have kind of fallen flat for a long time. I don't have any.
I don't have any.
I just have my broker's license, but you know, those could become important to build your
But how many
integrity and
people look at your
reputation.
card and say, what does GRS mean, or what, you know, what's
It
that?
comes into play,
What do you mean by
But if you're
designations?
listing,
like your ABRs, your CRS.
Okay, so I have a question about designations.
Certified real estate.
So I got all the designations, but some of them I just let go.
well,
Can I repay and get them back again?
No, you gotta go back to
I
school.
let the NDR go years ago because it was reaching the stage where I was paying over $1,000 a year in dues.
What?
And I mean,
That's why I let it go.
Donna
Oh,
Elder
I know.
probably pays $5,000 in dues for all of her all the initials behind
See,
it. And they, I mean, CRS brings me referrals. There's certain ones that are valuable long-term, but it's the fact that you took the time to get the education that is invaluable in your career.
And that can help negotiate with that listing agent that you're going to be a top agent in this transaction as the buyer's representation. You know,
I mean, the listing appointment I have on a Saturday is a past client, but that past client came from a CRS referral out of Florida 5 or 6 years ago. So you
That one's
see,
paying for it.
But you must have did a good job because they called you back.
Yeah.
That's what, that's.
yeah, and I've
Carol
seen
always
it.
does
So
a
the
good job.
GRI designation.
Carol always does a good job.
But what I'm saying is, I got the GRI designation early on because I needed to learn more about real estate. and I needed it, I think, to get my CRS. And then one led to the other, but I got the ABR when we started buyer representation. But all of that, and then somewhere along the way, I realized I had enough hours to sit for my broker's exam. And I've had my broker's exam for over 30 years.
Now, the GRI, you don't have to renew, right? You don't have to pay dues on that.
But the GRI is valuable when you are a brand new agent to get you started. You've been around too long to go back and get it now. It would bore you so.
No, I've got it already.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
But I'm just wondering if I had to renew it every year. I can't remember.
No, you don't pay dues on that.
I didn't think so.
But some of
So you
them,
do.
you do, and like I had all the distressed property ones, the short sale, all that. And I paid dues on them for a while, but then we weren't in that kind of market. So, and it's kind of a thankless job to do short sales. When we get back into those, I can help you with them. But there's no way I'm gonna prospect.
I think we're gonna start saying them again, aren't
Oh, yeah, we will. Oh,
But
yeah,
even
because
client
the-
testimonials from your buyer sellers, those are gonna become more important. You know, you can share those with the other side of the transaction to show that you are going to be a very involved agent in the transaction and bring value. I mean, every little thing you can think of will
So
help.
how do you handle it though, if you're going out with a buyer and they're offering or 1%?
I would call the listing agent and
But then if they say, no, so then you go back to your buyer and you say, what?
say they're not willing to pay me.
Well, they're gonna pay you 1%.
Well, and the
Isn't it just part of
conversation-
our agreement though, that we have to
Well,
show
then
the
give them
house?
1% of your
If
services.
the buyer wants to see it, then
Right.
can we actually say, I'm not gonna
There's
show
a
the
good
house,
one.
and it's not 3%?
You know, technically not.
I mean, we're
That's-
self-employed,
That's
right?
the problem right there.
We're
It
independent
is, but
contractors.
this is why that phone call to the listing agent is gonna be important, because at that time, I would also, ask them if it's negotiable. If they, if I could provide enough evidence to support, being paid X amount on this transaction, is this something that your seller would entertain?
I can tell you where that conversation's gonna go.
I would wait till they like it. I mean, I wouldn't bring it up until they like it. And then say, hey, they're really interested. Would
Well,
you?
my question is then, when we're looking at the list of properties that match the criteria that the buyer is interested in, are we going to be leaving out the ones that don't match
I
their
don't think
income
so.
level?
Well, they're looking anyway,
Right.
they're gonna find.
Well, and that's what you said was happening.
That's
They
what
were steering away from those.
Well, and that's what my concern is when we're having this conversation, is that's kind of where that goes, is
Mm-hmm.
why would we even show them that
So,
property? That
if we're-
concerns me.
Bound by all these rules by NAR, why can't we leave NAR?
Well,
I don't think.
I mean, I'm saying, we're kind of stuck because there's no way for us to get access to
And
MLS.
this case is still
And so-
under whatever, right?
it's gonna go to.
Yeah, but the problem is, it's out there now.
Have
There's
you had a conversation with anybody though that knows about it? I have.
I
Couple-
have
couple
yesterday.
But they don't know what they're talking about.
Yes,
They come to me and say, oh, yeah, I read something that you guys are being accused of, price gouging or.
But the issue
Something,
is,
something they have
there's-
no idea what they're talking about.
there
You
are
gotta
30
explain
other
it to them.
small ones that are
Right.
popping up all over the United States. And
Yeah.
just like every other civil action lawsuit that's going on, when people start getting whiff of it, and there's already been a case that it is under review in the way that this $1 billion one is, that it is going to continue to come up, it's not gonna go away.
The headlines are sensationalized.
For sure.
So then that piques people's interest. So I think the longer this goes on, which it's going to drag on for a while, the more savvy your folks are going to become. So you may not be hearing a lot now, but it will gradually grow.
The way I explained it to my client yesterday was just kind of like the McDonald's hot coffee thing. I was like, have you ever signed a contract? Like, there's always been a lawsuit in real estate, and there's always a form that comes after. So basically, that's really all this lawsuit is saying. Like, it's just another disclosure form. McDonald's has to write on the coffee cup,
Yeah, because.
caution be hot. Like, we have to say, like, you have a choice now, and you have, it's just, I think that's what it's going to be, end up being. I don't think anybody knows, but ultimately, I think it's just disclosure, right? Like,
That's
So
why
do
we're
we have to
starting.
tell them up front that there's a big lawsuit?
No, you don't. But that's why we're
That's
gonna
how I
start.
said it. He asked me.
Right.
Well, and why we want to start requiring January 1st here at our brokerage that everyone fill out the buyer's rep agreement. And
Yeah, that's
so
another conversation.
it goes through and explains the way you're being paid.
Can you do, well, because at first I think that, and this,
Well, because
like,
they
because
can-
they can always
The buyer's
sign it,
rep
it's not
that
gonna
we-
make them sign it.
That we currently have is going to need to be adjusted.
Okay, it's been like that.
I mean, it does. There's forms that you know are gonna change.
But then we get back to that situation where it says plainly in there, if you go out and buy for sale by owner, I mean, I'm cutting it down, then you're gonna be responsible for paying me. Well, what about us that have some clients who are poor and they can't pay
If they're
us?
not offering 3%,
And it ticks them
the
off.
balance of it, yeah.
Well,
And then I was gonna go after a lady one time. She came here from Indiana, long story short, I sold her house, she was a realtor. And she went off and bought it for sale by owner, and I was ready to go after her. And I remember Maria Goss looked at me and she goes, "You wanna be somebody that's known for going after somebody from commission?" And I should have said, "Damn Skippy, I do," because I ran that lady everywhere. And she went and bought a big expensive house.
And she was a realtor.
And she was a realtor, a Remax realtor out of Indiana. I mean, I'm sure
Okay,
everybody
so-
here had it done to you before.
Here's my question to you though. This is where I first started the whole conversation. There's so many examples of that. There's so many examples of that.
Yes.
We're shooting ourselves in the foot by our behavior. And so the real question needs to be, what is this brokerage going to represent? What are we going to look like, and how are we going to look different than everybody else? That's the question at play.
Yeah, but
right?
how many agents do we have, and look how many are here? That's real estate, you know, that's just real estate. But everybody needs to, I'm like you, because, you know, maybe a good way to stand out, you know, instead of, because, you know, all of us who've been in this for a long time, there are so many agents now that, well, I'm gonna dumb it down some, that you just wanna, I'm sorry, kick them in the teeth.
Well, they'll be leaving soon.
I hope so.
So here's another thing that I started doing that I think that every good agent should start doing. I'm not putting myself in that boat. I've only been licensed for 3 years, so I'm
That's
not
okay.
by any means saying I have it figured out. But I have had a huge presence on LinkedIn, and I'm marketing to other professional real estate people. I don't care if they're in lending, I don't care if they're whatever they're doing. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to be ready to purchase your CRM when you're ready to leave. I want to ask you, how much is your CRM worth to you? I'm sorry you're leaving the industry. I would love to take these clients for you. And then now, you're gonna be able to step in on situations like that. So when everybody else is over here arguing about whether or not we're gonna be paid by buyers, you can be over here building your list, and now you have 500 extra people that you wouldn't have had in that same time frame trying to get that many, because you're able to now
I'll show you my list.
work with all of these people versus arguing whether or not you're gonna get paid on this one situation.
Right, but it's just so, I mean, I've been doing this for, I don't know, Jenny, me and Jenny got, how long we been in this, about, we've been doing it a minute, and it's changed,
I
haven't it?
remember when you started.
I've been here for 2 years and it's changed a lot.
It's changed, and I think the problem is a lot of real estate agents don't respect other real estate agents. And I have to say, I'm one of those. I get so mad if I cannot, I mean, I text as much as anybody else. Some things were called, you need to pick up the phone, whether you want to or not. But some people, you just.
And that's gonna set you apart. I really believe that coming up with these changes, you're gonna see the split, it's gonna divide. You're gonna have your professional agents that continue to do business, and then you're gonna have these over here thinking that they can do it cheaper for less, and they're not gonna do well. They're gonna fail and they're gonna leave.
Yeah, it's.
It's
the
going to
80-20
strengthen our industry but it's gonna take time for that transition to happen and for us to have a new normal. So the only thing we can do right now is have these conversations and talk about how we can set ourselves apart, like Tony mentioned. That's kind of how I see it going long term. It's
I
just,
like your idea of just coming out front, which I don't think a lot of people are gonna be vulnerable enough to do, and hit that head on in social media and say, this is what we do. This is, and do it differently, because I'm seeing some people doing it, but in the way that you're saying of like, it seems like these are the questions that are coming up that are maybe a little misunderstood. And being vulnerable and open and not afraid that it's gonna backfire and then everyone's gonna not wanna pay you. Because if you can't come up front and be vulnerable in that way of like, this is what I provide value for, and most people are going to agree with that. I mean, shop local is a giant thing now. Like, use that to our advantage.
What if it gets thrown out? What if
It's
it gets
still
thrown
there.
out?
It's
not gonna go away.
I mean, do you think they're gonna win these billions of dollars?
It doesn't matter now if they win or not, it's,
The change is here.
we, now that the public knows and we're gonna have to deal with it.
One party settled.
But
right?
you didn't know
What I
opportunity.
There's
Launch.
been two big ones.
Maybe
that
Keller
some-
Not
Williams.
many.
No.
No.
Keller Williams is fighting hard with NAR.
Oh.
They're fighting hard against it. They were,
What's,
they're the ones
what's
who feel.
settled, didn't they? Somebody settled.
I believe Remax settled and EXP
I think
settled.
that's gonna be a problem.
EXPO.
It's not said United.
Somebody settled.
But again, you
There
guys
was
need to
a-
look
there's
at
another
it. There are
state.
smaller brokerages
Oh,
that are being
state has
sued all over the United
Oh, yeah.
States for the same exact thing, and some of them are even using the same exact lawyer. It's,
Oh, yeah.
it's,
Why wouldn't you?
Well, it's ironic because
Right.
the jury
Yeah.
handed down that verdict that there were no homeowners on it.
yeah.
So they dismissed all of them. So they were all people that never even bought a house before or renters.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So they can't afford a house anyway.
So.
So, I mean,
It's a way to make money too.
What I've seen a lot of on social media is agents now coming out and giving the list of all the things they do.
Mhm.
That's bullshit.
And some of it's
Yeah.
over the top. Have you seen some
Yeah,
of
it's
those?
like, I woke up in the morning, I brushed my teeth.
Yeah, no,
Look
that's the
at
kind of
mom.
stuff, and that's not where, if you have to tell somebody your value,
Yeah.
then you don't have the value.
Right.
Because you're worried about it.
It's just like the person you were talking about on Facebook Marketplace. That agent didn't explain the exclusive right to sell contract, because if they did, that person would know they can't be advertising without putting the brokerage.
And you can
in.
get a fine for that, right? If
Yes.
you're.
Yeah,
It's your house?
yeah, but it's.
KREC finds out.
I had a client
It's
get,
at
When
the top
the
of the
agent would get a
second
fine or the
page.
person?
Absolutely.
Exclusive right to
one?
sell.
back in the day when we would advertise in the newspaper, you know, we're that old. I had a client, she was my neighbor, and she hit the sauce a lot, and she ran an ad in the Lexington Herald Leader and said, it was her house, it was her sale, she lived one door over me, and she brought this there, call Angie. I was like, I called her, I said, of course by that, I thought, and there are a lot of realtors who are out to get other realtors, or there were back then. I said, and I told her, I said, if I get a fine, you're gonna pay.
Oh, no.
I thought I was
Call
mortified. Right, call Angie, put my number
But
there.
it's a matter of explaining your
And then when I called the client
paperwork.
out, I said, you can't. do
Right,
that.
it's just,
Because I was getting
And
calls,
you
it was the
don't
same
have to
pictures that
tell them your
I took.
value, they stick with you.
Right.
because you added
Yeah,
it.
That's why when you're getting repeat business over and over, and you're getting referred, like Lori and our business is what, 99% referrals. So Jen, yours is too, right? Yours probably is too.
Yeah, because
But when you do a good job and you prove your value to people,
was
they're
a
gonna
friend.
call you back. Now, we talked about this.
He wanted
Houses
It's-
for sale.
That's
My
where
broker at the
you
time was like,
have to know your stuff.
Absolutely, and you better go in there knowing.
Like, I don't
Just
need for
these
that.
other stuff.
Yeah, the
You know, we're just like,
relationship with
you want this,
other
rent us
agents
your house for $2 million.
is very important.
It is.
What
It
I
really
learned
is.
from my transition,
Drop the
the very,
price
very
of
first. I just
We can
became
drop this to 10
realtor
grand,
like
drop
a
it
month
down.
in. She's already closing on a
Okay.
property on December 8th.
That's
So
right.
that's awesome.
But you know what, that is the truth though, what they're saying about
I'm
proving your value.
Japanese, so yeah,
She was
there
a-
are very few
Just-
Japanese realtors, so that's why I just help my friend to buy a house, that's it, but I really just want to help them, help Japanese people because they're not rich, so I just want to help them, but Yeah, at first I was thinking, I came from Bowling Green, Kentucky, and I've been serving for Refuge Bowling Green. There are many refugees in Bowling Green, and I was thinking that if I could help them, like 1% commission or something like that. But after I became realtor, Kim Nelson, my partner, told me that it's not professional, and Carol told me about that. So, okay, I understood that. So maybe I should stick to 3%. But there are many other things that I can do for them. Like I can taste their house so that I can sell the house at
Just being able to translate to help them buy is the value.
Oh, you're not
You
kidding.
don't have to do
that's the
all
only
these
thing
other-
I can do now.
Because if they want to buy a house, there's your value.
There sure is.
Yeah.
And you need to put it out there.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It's the truth.
Yeah.
We've all had clients that
So-
we had, there was a gap.
Barrier.
Absolutely, trying to be able to understand. And I remember we were in here and I had a couple, and I remember, I could not make him understand. I literally had to explain to him, and I did it by drawing a bicycle and saying, you know, okay, you're selling this bicycle for $10, but you want to go in and you're going to give them $10 for the bike, but you're going to come back and ask them $5 for closing costs. In essence, and he finally got it. And we got the house. They were the nicest people ever, but we had the worst.
But talking about a relationship with other agents, that to me is like, that's very important, because like I was closed on one, that I had done a deal with her before, and we won it because we had worked together before, and she knew how I was, and I mean, it went great, everything, you know, because she's a communicator and I'm a communicator, and there's so many times that they're not, it's like you're working with somebody that's not a communicator.
I don't understand agents that have to be so adversarial with
I don't either.
everything, like, you're the enemy, I'm like, you know, we're both trying to sell this house.
You know, in our
I'm
page,
representing my client, but, you know, you have to
absolutely,
work together.
our objective is to get everybody to the closing table, and I'm sorry, but it's for us to get our paycheck, because we work our butts off out
Well, and that's really one thing that I think that our office in whole is better at than most. I really do. I think that the agents here have a respect for what we do. I think they have good relationships with people out
It's important.
in the industry, and we don't have a lot of people that are naturally combative.
Yes.
You know, and that's what makes me proud to be here. That's why I have never left. That's why I'm now the broker. Because I think the people here, we've got fantastic people. And it makes a difference.
It does, it really does.
What I'm trying to figure out is a lot of I'm not gonna say the company, and any of us who have been in the business long enough know, these people who are just getting in, they've all got assistants. How? I mean, you know what I'm talking about? There's some companies out there that, I had one guy, and I could not, it was on a new bill, it was in Richmond, and I literally.
What's his name? Start with an R.
I can't remember. I kept trying to, because I had a client that wanted to go out and look. And he wouldn't call me back. I texted him, I called him, everything. So then finally he goes, hey, I'm at Kingland today. Okay, good. Step aside and text me back. I'm going to have my assistant reach out to you. I never even heard of it. And then I looked him up on KREC. He hadn't even been in the business 2 years. You got an assistant? Whatever.
That's something we need.
You know, do you think they give them? Y'all know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I don't know.
There's a lot of new ones out there that play the assistant thing but have sold 2 houses. Like, it's
I
just,
don't understand it.
I think
Why do they
they-
think they don't have to answer you or respond?
was wrong.
I mean,
Don't sweat the small stuff. That small stuff is weird.
I'm too much of a control freak to have
Me
an
too.
assistant.
I'm a control freak.
I want my people,
I mean,
I
I keep them honest,
And
but
there's
she,
some
like,
companies
calls
too
me.
that, will have, an assistant or an administrator for say 6 agents or whatever, it's just divided up that
But
way.
they make it say.
Yeah, and it makes the agent, it puffs them up.
It puffs up their ego.
But you know,
Maybe
our
one-
other brokerage,
It may be the administrator for
12
20 agents that would,
Well, it might be a transaction coordinator, but I would never call it Amy my assistant.
Absolutely. And I get
That's
it.
like consulting.
But you know, when we were at that other brokerage, we were told we could not offer the buyer side. Now, this was before all this happened, but absolutely, you better not go in under 3%. Point blank. You know what I'm talking about? It was very funny. She said, you cannot do it. And
well, that's an office policy.
yes, so that's,
different, but now what we're doing,
we're dealing with.
the way the law, I guess, is reading, or the way these court cases are going, it's the seller who, it's not going broker to broker the way it did previously.
Right.
It's coming from the seller to pay the buyer's agent or office.
So when we're doing a listing now, we explain to them.
Well, I told you what I'm giving you a script right there. And I'm saying my office charges 3%. Now, you do not need to explain that you're a limitless agent or you're,
Absolutely.
you don't need to explain
That's
how much
nobody's
the office,
business.
that's not anybody's business.
You just say it's proprietary information.
Uh-huh.
Say it's proprietary information if they ask.
But,
Because they're gonna
but
find out.
I've never
splits
had
like
anybody ask
somewhere
me
20
what
and
my
they only pay
split was.
$4.95.
I've never had, they've never asked me. But
I've
I
never
just
had
say my
anybody
office-
ask.
My
With the
office charges
antitrust
what?
stuff, are you allowed to say this is our office policy?
We did it.
I know you're doing it.
Right.
Are you allowed
Well,
to
we
say-
did it
that's-
then.
That's
We
not
did.
the question.
I haven't had it happen now, since, because that's been a while back, so, not since all
With
of
the way
this
the
came
law is
about.
reading with the lawsuits, are you even allowed to say, as a brokerage, this is our policy? I mean, you can say policy for anything.
But she's saying for what she's gonna get paid.
Right,
as
that's what I'm
listing.
asking. Are you allowed to even tell the seller, you will pay me
It's-
this much because it's office policy?
Well, you can say it's office policy. Now, is it negotiable? Yes.
Yeah,
But
that's my
then-
question.
But then, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I eat it.
Well, yeah, they're saying, would you want me to be working for less money? I've been back in there.
Yeah.
You got a
Say,
salary, right?
And
Sure.
then they'll say,
So
well,
I'm like every boss.
what do you want me to cut? I don't want to cut anything because it reflects on Carol Shue.
That's true.
Yeah.
You take away your
I'm
salary.
still gonna do all my stuff.
Right. I asked them if their employer, if their employer came to you and said, hey, by the way, this month I'm gonna pay you this much less, how would you feel about that?
Absolutely.
You'd be like, oh, yeah, that'd be kind of.
Well, I just
That's
cut
basically
it
what
to
you're
the
doing to me.
chase, and I just say money motivates me and lack of it does not.
Yeah, that's fair.
What's-
But I don't think
I want your
that's-
money. There's a script
How do
you
you
go
say that?
into.
Well, yeah, and you can tailor that to whatever's comfortable for you and your personality.
But as
I wanna
far
pay
as
my
making
bills,
it,
you know, I mean,
I have gas expense, I mean, I guess just list a few, maybe
you can
photographer, of
just
course,
cut it
things
to
I
the
can
chase.
review.
Money motivates, life does not.
but why is it doing it to our industries? I mean, people who work at, I don't know,
Well,
Amazon,
I
they
think a
get
lot of
paid
it's
X
to do
amount of
with
dollars an hour,
perception.
and
So
that's
when
what they
someone
make.
said, I mean, you're making
Look
it
at
look
the
like
table.
huge closing gifts that agents give.
Yeah.
Look at their social media, and I talk about the toes with the
Oh.
laptop on the beach,
Yeah.
telling people, paying people,
I'm in Puerto Rico
agents to
selling
show your
houses.
listings, and then you write the offer.
Yeah.
Where's the value to the client?
Right. You know, that's one thing we did when we first got
So-
our license.
Well,
We were together, we helped each other, and we didn't pay each other, we just
well,
did it.
we're not
I can't
talking
do that.
about that so much, but I'm talking about your perception to the public.
Right.
The
Oh,
pub-
yeah.
The public is perceiving that we're overpaying because we take trips to Tahiti, well, I don't either, but.
I think the average
but-
person does. It's just been, I think,
But the realtors, I
Some
mean,
people have
because
made
the commissions have looked so good because the property values have gone up so much that brand new agents in the business, I mean, I'm hearing people talk about, oh, their friend's daughter or whatever just got into real estate in the first year, they grossed over 300,000, and I'm thinking,
That's the exception.
I'm like you.
Yeah, but this is legit, and we've seen newer agents out there doing this, but it was a market where you could do that if you removed lots and lots of contingencies and screwed your.
I think that's where now the good agents are
And
gonna.
this is where you're gonna see the cream rise to the top. You've got to know your industry, you've got to explain it, stay within the code of ethics. Don't talk badly about another agent.
No.
You know, you've got to explain the paperwork. You can't do everything remotely from Florida or wherever on .loop
Or you're on the
and
beach.
expect, and post it all on social media
I know.
and
I
expect
agree.
to be adding value in the public's eye.
You know, and talking about that, when you go out of town, it's so important. This is another way to add value to your clients. You have someone that will show them properties, that will write offers.
Conversation.
You do
Yes.
not stop their search or the sale of their home because you're out of town. I mean, Karen's helped me, Angie's helped me for years. I do the same. Like, we have those cooperative agreements and we don't pay each other now. If something big happens and they have to do a lot of work, we'll talk about it and decide what's
I'm
fair.
a proponent of paying people. I like to have a work agreement, but that's me. I'm one of
You gotta
those
find out
people.
what works for you and who you work with.
Yeah, but if
Don't-
you're out of town and we have a seller or buyer calling Jenny or me, we need to know how to get in touch with you and who's covering for you locally.
Absolutely.
Because it happens. It happens a lot when people, can't
Have you
get a
ever
hold
got
of
a
their
call, I
agent.
wanna show your listing, and you'll say, well, are you working with an agent? Well, my agent's out of town. Well, your
that's
agent
always
doesn't
happened.
want me to show you this, because then they're gonna be.
And we get calls into the office. I've been trying to get a hold of this realtor that's got this property listed. See, Dylan's shaking his head. And we can't get a hold of the agent. Well, what kind of service are you providing your seller if there's sign calls coming in and you're not,
They're
yeah,
all spam calls, just stop answering any of them.
right. I mean, it's crazy.
For the record, it's not been any of you.
But you know, the good thing about it too is, I mean, even though we go away, if we go to Florida or Tahiti or wherever, I don't do that, but I mean, if I go
I
like
still
that,
answer my phone.
you have to.
Drives my wife nuts.
Yeah. It
Does your
drives
wife
my
get mad?
kids
I'm
nuts.
like, hey, pay the bills. I
It's
mean, you want me to get, look at this house. If I sell this, this is this much money.
absolutely.
I'll be out in
I can't
the
have an
ocean
hour to talk to
answering a
people.
phone call. My
See,
kids
I wanna
are like,
take my
why do you
phone
do
away.
that?
Because my mom used to
That's
say,
what I
can't
tell
you just turn that
I'm
thing off?
like, this is.
Tawanda's got a ringtone that says something like, that's money calling or.
Every time the phone rings, it's money calling.
Yes.
I mean, it's the
Yeah.
truth, but I wanna know, and I'm sure that's probably another day, on the buyer's rep, I wanna know how we explain that about if you go out and buy FISBO or whatever.
Well, I wouldn't say if you go out and
Well,
buy a FISBO.
Well, I don't know what FISBO is, but.
Well, no, but what I would say, I would explain, what I do with my clients when I'm explaining that to them is, if you want my representation, you can look, I know you're going to be looking online and know the market for what you're looking for probably better than I do, because I work with other people as well.
Right.
But when you are on Zillow or Realtor.com or Coldwell Banker's site or whoever's,
Redfin. I do a lot of those.
Redfin, whoever it is, if you see a property that you are interested in, let me know the address. I will give you the additional information, and then, that includes, and that will include the for sale by owners. If you drive by one, if you see it on Zillow,
Right.
let me know. Now, what I'll do if it's a for sale by owner is let me make the first contact. Because if you call them directly and then add me in, I'm perceived by the seller as the enemy.
Absolutely.
They don't want to deal with me. If you want me to represent you, then I need to make the contact. If they say they will not work with me, then I will let you know, because I can't represent you on that one, because I will not be paid.
Don't look kind of around, the ones that do. I had a client like that, a friend that
I
was trying to sell his
have-
house, and I'm not paying any commission. I'm like, well, what's my incentive? And he asked me, he said, bring me any buyers you have. And I said, well, how much commission? He said, well, I'm not paying commission. I'm like, why would I bring
Money motivates me.
He's like, oh, well.
I love that.
So
Money
I was
motivates
going for
me.
the strict transaction with no realtors involved, and someone coming in and pay cash flow. I'm like, dude, you're not gonna get that.
Right, good luck with that.
And then 2 weeks later, you're calling back, you're like, okay, well, I'll offer commission. I'm like, how much? He's like 3%. I'm like, okay.
That's
I'll
one of
let
the
you-
questions that when I call for sale by owners,
Yeah.
but I
First thing I asked him.
the first
One
thing,
of the first things.
sure.
Are you cooperating with agents as well?
Let's say, are you offering a commission for agents to bring a buyer? And then that kind of dawns on me, like, oh, maybe I have to offer money for business?
And then they'll say, a lot of them will say, well, yeah, I'll pay you, but you gotta add 3% to the sales price.
And, you know,
Or
typically,
two, or there's that 3%.
technically, that's a net commission, which is illegal.
Yes. So
You mean like
You can't.
you can't say you have to do this much.
Right, you don't add it on top, we all do, but that's a net commission, you can't do that.
right, and then what if the house doesn't price because it got raised
Well,
up
that's
to
another-
cover?
that's another
But that's what I'm
issue.
saying, but that's all of a
The
sudden that can
value
happen.
of the property is the value
Period.
of the property regardless of the real estate commission, whether it's in there or not, but if you sell it by owner, according to NAR statistics every year, you're gonna lose about 8%. It's gonna sell about 8% lower, where if a
And
real
longer.
estate agent is
The
involved in
selling,
it,
you mean, is so close.
it will sell about 8% higher with realtors.
And that can
Is there
add up
such
to
a
So
thing?
that's where I'm giving you
Yes.
scripts, that you keep going back to the same thing. It's like, if I'm dealing with you on a transaction and you keep harping and harping and harping at me, I'm gonna keep repeating myself over and over and over again, because when you're negotiating, that is how you get control. You slow the process down, you keep repeating yourself. That's how you do it, hijackers on the airplanes.
Hijackers, I need to know what
I'll go through this with my.
We're toddlers.
We're
We need to take her with us.
That's funny. So let's move on to, I'd love for you guys to kind of brainstorm and just throw out things you do to add value, because what we like to do, and Dylan's back there, he can write some down, I'll write some down, but I wanna hear from you guys what you think you do, either on the buying side or selling side, to add value to a transaction. And we can collaborate and pull something together to add that supplement piece with your steps to buying and steps
You're
to
talking
selling.
right to the.
Yes. So just,
Answer my phone.
okay.
I'm available 24/7.
Always
I don't wanna say 24/7.
I just have a.
So communication, right?
Yeah.
With all parties.
Yes, with everyone, that's the thing.
Okay. Keep it going. I'm writing them down.
I don't wanna say like it's my job to know the market, but right, but do I say it's my job, or do I make it sound?
Don't say.
It is our job to know it.
Just, I mean,
Understanding market.
It's understanding the market, and it's just, when I go on a listing, I mean, are you selling yourself, are you selling the office, are you explaining to them? I'm not a hard sales person. When I got into real estate, I thought, if I have to hard sell, I won't make it. I can't do that, but I can teach. And so I teach my buyers and my sellers the process. I explain we're a team, we're gonna work together, and I communicate with them throughout the transaction.
So educate both parties on the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I do on both sides is I have a form in my presentations that walks through the cycle of emotions that they're going to go through, so that they know exactly what they're going to be feeling at what stage. And so when they start to panic, like, oh my gosh, we just put this in, now I don't know if I can afford it, I can bring that sheet back out and be like, remember, this is how everyone feels at this stage. because it's a really big decision. And then if you can already give them that, curve ahead sign before the curve is there, that is so beneficial.
I'd say right now, there's a lot of fires are backing out more often.
Yes. And saying like, in an inspection report, you're most likely going to be getting 25 pages of everything that's wrong with the house because that's their job. You're literally paying them to see every little thing that's wrong. So when we get this, and it has all these problems, our goal is to pick out the top 3 that bother us the most, and then we decide whether or not we're going to ask them to fix it or whatever.
Right, and then also tell them at the beginning, you may want to set aside maybe 1% for repairs.
Right.
For
And that's setting expectations.
Yes.
Well, and talking about the inspection, how many agents today are not even attending the summary of the inspection?
A lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
I walked through it with them.
Well, it
Me
does
too.
Every
too,
single time.
because how, you need to be there at the summary, especially if your buyers are there, because you're representing them.
Absolutely.
But how, good negotiating, how do you negotiate something that you don't understand
Yes.
and that you've never seen?
Oh, yeah, I've learned so much by going to those about houses, and I'll say something to my husband, he'll be like, whatever, and I'm like, that's what I do for a living.
Exactly. And
Or to bring their dad, you're not there.
It helps you.
That's always a good time.
It helps you when you're showing property so that they don't formalize things.
Right.
That,
And I tell my clients, this goes to what Carol's saying, when we're looking at homes, you're evaluating the emotion of it.
yeah,
I'm looking to see how well the house has been kept, because I know where the dust is when you just clean to put it on the market. I know what things from the inspection that could be problematic, or FHA, if that's the type of loan, some of those pitfalls.
Right.
So I'm your second set of eyes that knows what to look for in the technical pieces.
and also your buyers don't always know the questions to ask the inspector.
Right,
Right.
a lot of times, especially if they're first timers, they're intimidating.
Well, even your more savvy people, there are certain things with our experience we know to ask that they don't. It's just like, I'm getting ready to put a piece of 5 acres on the market. It's a building lot. And we did the paperwork. I went out to put my sign up and realized, hey, wait a minute, there is no access to this I mean, it's got road frontage, but there's no place to pull over.
Or to get into it.
And so, it's ended up for probably the last 6 weeks or so, I've been dealing with, the state highway department, to get a legal access to it. So have I added value to my sellers? Yeah, because this is an estate, and I've been dealing with the estate attorney. The appraiser had appraised it but didn't pull that information. And I knew that if we couldn't get that access, because it's in a curve in the road, that value was not gonna be way up here.
No.
It was gonna go up real fast because you've got 2 buyers, one on either side. And, so do I have to tell them I added value? No.
They're
But
gonna know.
they know. I've got them included in the emails with the
Are you
highway
getting
department.
anywhere with the highway department? or
Yeah,
is
we've
it-
got the verbal approval, we're just waiting for the paperwork now.
Yeah.
But I've been holding this paperwork in my drawer for 6 weeks or 2 months.
Yeah, but there's nothing
But
like
that's-
sticking it on the market
and
and then
then
nobody can get to it.
Okay, then let me show you give you another one. Okay, the person I'm meeting with on Saturday, the past client, her husband died in June. She, I had lunch with her a couple of weeks ago, and she was telling me this is home. She's from out of state originally, and you know, how she loved it here, and her husband's buried here, and she's gonna be buried next to him, and all this other. Well, now she's very emotional because we're probably into the holidays. And so this is your job as being a counselor.
Yes.
And she's got her brother coming for a couple of weeks to stay with her. And she thinks, she's telling me now she wants to put it on the market. But does she really? That's where I've got to counsel her and say, you know, technically, I should be advising you, you need to wait a year to make any big decisions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is where you don't always go in for the,
But she will thank you later.
well, exactly, and this
Absolutely.
is what I'm telling you. This is value, but I don't tell her, this is my value, I'm gonna talk to you about listing your house.
Right.
You know, that's, you know, you see where I'm coming from. This is where I see the agents right now posting on social media 150 things that I will do to add value to you. And it's a bunch of bull.
Makes you look guilty.
Well, it looks like I'm overpaid, but I can justify it. I mean, that's how it's perceived by the public. So I'm telling you, these are the things you do to stay in business 35 years and still have business. And I'm not out there looking for new business all the time. I'm working with repeat and referral, but that's how you do it.
But that's the best
Yeah.
form of it,
But that's what you do. You don't count your commission money until after you get it. You do the job first, and if you sell something for 1%, then you do the 3% job, and they'll see your value and they will refer you, and you will still build your business, but you won't get 3% on every one of them.
Right.
So give me a few more things. We've got some great ones here with communication and expectations and the cycle of emotions. I like that. I've never seen anyone do that, and I think that's a
So
really
like on the
cool
listing
idea.
side, you know, we're gonna go in and we're gonna help them get their house ready. You know how people sometimes think it's ready to go and you're like, I mean, you don't insult their house.
Right.
But, you know,
I
when
think
it's.
like referring different vendors, like roofers or.
Absolutely. Because if you think about it, we've got all those in our,
Well, this
Either.
just yesterday, my client waited to the very last
Oh,
minute
what a
to get
nightmare
something
that
done to
is.
her house, and I have a roofer that does a great job, and so I called him and was like, hey, could you go over and do this? And he did it, thank God, because we were closing at 2, and he got done at 10 a.m. Yeah.
oh, that was a, ooh, and that Diane Emmerich was on the other side, you know, she's going through a whole lot right now with the death of her mom, did you know that? And then her sister died, and
Her sister-in-law.
her sister-in-law passed away like 2
The
days
massive heart
later.
was a heart
but,
attack. She just died.
You know, but that's another thing too. Diana she was going through a lot, but you know what? She walked in there and she held it right together.
Well, and I actually didn't deal with Diana because obviously she was going through all that, but her person that she had with her was amazing too. She was great, so.
Because sometimes you have to step away and let.
So the other thing too that's important is providing them resources for lending, right? And that's very important because we all know not every lender is equal, just like not every realtor is equal.
Right.
And so I think it's important that you give them choices of folks that you know do a good job out in the market. So, you know, your lender or your financial recommendations.
One of the things that I was surprised by is how the typical consumer doesn't know that they can have their credit pulled by as many lenders as possible within a time frame without it causing any issue.
It's 14 days. Is it 14 days?
I think it's over 30.
I think it's 30 days.
Is it 30? I thought it was just a couple of weeks.
And they
So-
also can leave their phone number out of their lending application so they don't get all of those phone calls.
Where people are just wearing
So
them.
ask their loan officer to leave their phone number off of it.
And it's good to know, you know, the difference between working with a mortgage company or a bank. The consumer doesn't know that.
Yeah.
Most people want to go to their bank first. The bank may not be able to bring you the best loan program. You have to know the market as far as your lenders and your banks and your mortgage companies. And so it's all of those things that they don't know about, that we know about and we learn, and we meet with people every day that can do different kinds of programs.
Absolutely.
On that same vein, that's one of the things that I make sure my buyers know, and I usually wait till the closing day to let them know, like, there's going to be a lot of scam things that look like your actual mortgage,
Right.
or it's possible your mortgage will be sold, but it won't be what you're thinking it is. And so I tell them, if you're questioning, take a picture and send it to me. And every time I get multiple messages, and I let them know, like, that one's not real, this one's not real, and letting them know that they don't have to wonder when those things start coming in the mail too, because you get 50, 60 of them that act like your mortgage is being sold.
Isn't that amazing? Is that all people have to do all day is try to get our money, our hard-earned money?
Well, I think also keeping up with them after the transaction.
Oh, I always tell my people, this doesn't end my time with you. I'm always available. I try to follow up in a few weeks, and then that makes them comfortable in reaching out because they know they're not bothering me.
Right.
Because a lot of folks will feel like, oh, I didn't want to bother you. Bother me.
Yes.
I love when I can talk to clients if they need a roofer or they're wanting to get an equity line and who should I call. Whatever it is, call me because I love to have those conversations afterwards. And they need to know that they can do that and that they're not bothering you.
Yes.
What else do we have?
I've done things where you can kind of feel people out and you know their stress level. So like in Minnesota, for example, there's a guy who only had the push snowblower thing. So he would do just enough for his car. So I paid for a snow service for that time when his house was listed. Because I knew he didn't have the ability to $60 each time. And so I paid for that service for him so it could be appropriately snow removed out of that location.
And that's the thing too, because we all know, of course, we don't have the snow there.
What?
You can pull into the drive, that's what it's like.
Then you can, oh yeah. But you know what, but we don't have that, well, I'm not sure because we'll get a foot, but there's nothing worse than showing a property.
Yeah.
And the whole sidewalk is, icy or whatever, and somebody will fall and.
Well, but there were properties that we looked at when we were coming down here where the whole driveway, and we had shipping containers that we knew we needed to get down these properties.
Right.
And it was like, we're gonna have to pay $5,000 just to brush hog the edge so that thing can get down.
So it can get there.
So even little things like that we looked at, where we were like, this is gonna cost so much just to at least even brush hog a portion.
To get your stuff in there.
And so that's where I look at that stuff of like, what are they actually seeing immediately? And everybody's gonna come from a different place, not everyone's moving across country with a storage container.
Right, or in a subdivision where it's,
Yeah.
What else do we have?
I think one of the most important for my clients is that it's all legal. I mean, it's all done and filed, and it's not a scam. I mean,
right. We're watching for them, their best interests, and we're not gonna.
the whole title search. Yeah, we're doing all that.
Absolutely.
And the paperwork, a lot of clients want to make sure that they want to hire a real estate agent because the real estate agent knows all the paperwork and what needs to be done instead of.
And they know what they can negotiate and what they cannot. And I think that's that goes exactly with the paperwork. That's really what it means. We know what can be negotiated and what can't be.
Right, like how many times have you been walking through a house and somebody will say something like, well, this carpet's disgusting, they need to replace this, like the seller. And you just have to say, no, that's, you can see this walking through, so when you write this offer, you're gonna know, but chances are they're not gonna go and put a layoff carpet.
And that's where when you're the buyer's agent, before they make the offer, you pull the comps and
look at them.
and I'll say, it looks, if it's the
priced
case,
that
I'll
way.
say it looks like it's priced well for the condition it's in.
Absolutely.
Or I'll say, it looks like the range is this, you've got my permission to go this high. If you go above that, I'm not sure it will appraise. But, but I'm guiding them, giving them advice, and they may decide to do something different.
But just like, they'll say stuff about paint colors and stuff.
That's cosmetic.
Exactly, and you don't, it says right on our forms, cosmetic is out, but, a lot of people do that, and I'm like, well, they probably like that, they like that brand.
Okay, so what else do we have?
We're smart.
We are smart.
Like Dylan, just don't give me any technical stuff to do, it's good. But I think something that I feel adds values, and anybody else, but I'm good to my people, and literally, Lori and I found out we are always available no matter what, but I think people remember that, down the road, like you're talking about, treat them with respect. Even some things you'll hear come out of their mouth and you're like, oh my God, but you don't say it, you just keep it in here. My
You
mouth
want
says,
to,
but you just have to, because sometimes you bless them and let them go.
like one client that I had, she, every time there was a show in her house smelled like marijuana, every time.
Oh God, and dogs.
And dogs,
And dogs.
and wondered why
Oh, fun.
we couldn't get an offer. And I'm like, she's like, but I'm out in the garage doing it.
Stop smoking weed.
I'm like, I don't care where you're at doing it. You can smell it. Like, people don't want to smell it.
And we're talking a nice home. It wasn't
A
cheap
nice
home.
Yes. And I don't care if she smokes pot. Like, that's her business.
Do what
Whatever.
you want.
But don't do it in the house when you're trying to sell it.
When the realtors were saying, that's
When I hear consistent feedback, what do you think?
I've told her.
oh,
She
you
don't
did
care.
right to her. She didn't care.
No.
So
Another thing.
what happened?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, one of
That's
the things
how
that
it's
I
like.
that I
Long
for my
time.
sellers too, because of the time frame that I entered, was that everybody was waiving all of the inspections and stuff, is that I would pay for an inspection up front before we listed the property. And
Okay.
I've said that to a few people and it gets mixed reviews among a lot of realtors, but that was something that I liked because then I could sit down with the sellers and be like, this actually is a really big deal that maybe you should fix before we
Right.
list the property.
Yes, and I had done that with a few, right, as the market was heating up. Because we knew it would go fast and we didn't want it to go off the market and come back on the market.
Because everybody, yeah.
So then, if they've been in the home for a while and they don't see anything wrong, sometimes it's just good to do that.
Yeah. Well,
So
then they
that-
can also
that's a
know
good
what to
suggestion.
expect for, if they didn't wanna fix it, I can go to my vendors and say, this is how much it would cost to get it fixed. So if it shows
Right.
up on a buyer's inspection, and they say, I want $5,000 for this, but it's only gonna cost $2,000 to fix, you can then say, well, I'm gonna fix it, cause it's gonna cost you $2,000,
Right.
versus giving them the $5,000 concession, or whatever.
Well, and some things.
Especially for
they
estate
also-
sales or things that have been rental properties. I mean, you
Yes.
just,
But it's also some of those little things, since you did do that, some of those little things that really aren't that big of a deal, they can put on the seller's disclosure
Yeah.
and go ahead and disclose it so that it can't be out.
well, and like I have attached HVAC reports, roof reports with the seller's disclosure so that, yeah, the roof is old, it's not leaking, our contract is written, that if it is working properly, you cannot come
Right.
and ask for repairs. And so, yes, it may be older, they may need to make repairs in the future, but we do all that adjustment in the pricing. And it's educating the buyers that that's how
Absolutely.
things are priced. Yeah, it's $400,000, it's gonna need a new roof next year. Well, yeah, but $415 is what the other one sold
Right.
for. So they've priced it appropriately.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to determine that.
Absolutely. Because it will come up, when people are like.
I mean, look at us talking at all these value
So
added.
We are so valuable.
Liz commented, she said she has a formal buyer's orientation, every single one.
Yes, that's very important because that's how you manage expectations.
Yeah.
But before the market got insane, we did that. But then when it got all crazy, we didn't really have the chance to do it.
And I would get the ones that I could get down to do it. The transaction went smoother in the crazy time
Absolutely.
because they knew it was going to be crazy. They knew what to expect. I was like, before we open doors, we're going to do this first, and trust me, you'll thank me later. You know, so you have to kind of slow their roll sometimes.
Yeah, but then you get into too, like, I've had calls before from people and, you know, whether they're past buyers or somebody gave me their name or gave them my name and they call me and they wanna go look at a house right now. And I'm like, well, you know, always, of course, have you been approved, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes if you say, well, I really would prefer to sit down and da-da-da, then they're gonna call somebody else. And you know what happened, and it was happening. I think we're getting out of that now.
Well, yes. I mean, and to be in a referral only kind of business,
Right.
you're able to manage those as they come in and determine who that you can maybe skip over that or come back and do that later with. You know, you kind of get a feel for
And
it.
if they're experienced buyers, it's a whole
Right. But,
thing.
you know, any kind of lead generated buyer or seller, I would not do that for. I wouldn't do it.
I'm not a lead generation person.
So what else do we have?
Why wouldn't you do that for a lead generated buyer?
I would not run out and just unlock a door. Just
Oh,
to
no, I thought you meant present the buyer's orientation.
Oh, no. I would do that first
Yeah,
on
okay.
a random lead that I got somehow, some way. I would never just.
I recently had one here, this is the one I was telling you about, where they said, well, we called and we've been talking to an agent, but we haven't signed anything yet, and I said, well, I'm actually brand new to Kentucky, and I just created a new buyer's orientation, and I said, I know I'm asking a lot, but would you mind if I presented it to you and you can give me feedback, since you're an experienced buyer, on what I should add, what should I leave out, and all of that. And they
Right.
were like, yeah, we'll do that. And then she even was like, I'll have my husband because he's more critical. And so then I was able to present it to them, and then they were both
Yeah.
like, this is way more than what this other lady suggested to give. And so just by me, like what he was saying, being vulnerable and being like, I'm brand new in this area, I get it, she's more experienced, but can I just present this to you and you can tell me what I missed in here? Or what I need to do differently? And usually they're like, oh, I can help you out. Let me help you out, you know?
Everybody loves helping.
Oh yeah, they love the opportunity to critique.
But then I benefit too because they genuinely critique stuff where I was like, oh, I really liked that color.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So I really do believe that the buyer consults are more important. The listing consults, you know, you do have to have that 2-step listing appointment. You can't just run over to Bobby Joe's house and be like, okay, yeah, let's sell it for $2.25. No. Here's the paperwork.
You have to go through there and you have to, you know,
Mhm.
sometimes you have a list of things you need them to do, but you have to, another way, that's how we provide our value.
Yes.
Because we're helping them.
Because if you don't, and they don't take care of necessary items, then they're going to be really upset when
And we're
buyers
really
come walking
feedback.
through going, well, that's dirty, that's ugly, that's, you know,
Right,
they become very critical, which leads to the next thing, you know.
And it's hard
Building your
sometimes to tell people that their house is dirty.
It is.
But
you know, one thing you could offer is some cleaning ladies. One thing I tell my clients all the time when they're getting their house ready to list, I'm like, listen, by the time you're done with this, the last thing you're going to want to do is a deep clean. Here's a name and number. Call them up. See if it's worth it. Most of the time, they're like, yeah, you're right. I do. After I box this up, paint this room, they do. No, they're done.
it's the truth. It's
So
the
then we'll
truth.
do it right before pictures and have everything pretty. But as far as showing houses, you know, not as many agents leave business cards anymore. Agents still are terrible about filling out feedback, but that's going to add to your reputation with other agents in the market. So the better feedback you can leave that is constructive and helpful is one way to build your reputation with agents you don't know.
And you know, it's so nice too when you're showing property and you go into a house, even though sometimes they're older homes that are not updated, but you can tell, like maybe Grandma and Papa have been living there since the 60s, but you can tell it's been so well taken care of, and it's clean, and it's a better experience.
Mm-hmm.
I take that any day over something that smells like weed.
I'm curious what you would say. More often than not, I would call the listing agent and give my review so that we have a conversation happening, whether or not the buyer is interested.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
I just think that if the time allows, absolutely. I think a one-on-one conversation.
They won't answer the
They won't answer the phone.
I didn't have issues with that. Or I would just leave a message. I would say, hey, I have some comments on the property you have listed, give me a call back at this number, and then they always give a call back.
If they call back, that's good.
Here, they call back here, or has that been happening since you've been here?
That was Minnesota. I will say, I was shocked. With my poor agent, when we were here, I was like, she kept her calls, she worked so hard. And she's like, I am not getting back to you because they didn't get back to me. And I knew that it was genuine.
It's the truth. It is.
Yeah, I felt so bad for her.
And it doesn't take a second to give feedback. And I usually do it like, if I'm showing like a bunch of houses at once, I wait till I'm done, because you can't be driving and texting and, you know. And some of the questions are ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think we could do to bring more from that?
And if if you are the listing agent and someone leaves feedback and you have those questions, by all means, call them, follow up. Again, that's building the relationship with the ones that are being professional in our market.
You know who calls me every time I even schedule a showing? Just to prep, like, hey, I saw that you scheduled a showing. Like, what kind of qualified buyers do you have? Like, what kind of financing are they? Like, he vets me before and my client before even entering the property.
Some listing agents do that as well to make sure it is a good fit for that buyer, that there's not something that's going to jump out, so that the seller doesn't have to run out of their house for an hour, hour and a half to somebody that it's not going to be a good fit for.
Yeah.
So that's that listing agent providing value to their seller.
And if you're going in, like a lot, we had one on the marijuana house, that we had to run her out, her dog, she's got 3 little kids, and the agent didn't say anything after it was over. Oh, well, I'm going through these before my clients get here. Well, tell us that.
Right.
You know, because
She might not have wanted to get everything out of the house.
Absolutely. So, you know, if you're doing, that way they're not getting their hopes up. They know that, you know, it's.
And a lot of these things, if you go through our steps to purchasing a home or selling your home, you go through each one of those steps, all of these conversations can come up and be had at that time.
Where is all that?
Dylan has copies in his office that he can share. So I would strongly suggest to start getting back to some sort of, whether it's on paper or digital, presentation that even before you meet with them, you can send that over and they can review, and you can highlight what you feel like is your most important value adds in your process, because everybody's going to be a little different.
Right. And it's like too, when you're working with certain buyers or sellers, like we all know, engineering. It's, if you're working with an engineer, it's a totally different, they're all about numbers, they're not, you know, like we were talking about how people get up and down. They're very.
My husband's an engineer,
Yeah. So you know,
That's a lot of my personality.
Is it? Really? You're
Good job
that
at
right
explaining
there.
how to.
Yeah.
I've taken her class before.
But you know they're very. You know, I'll be getting all excited about that.
So part of what I passed out at the beginning,
I didn't get one.
we'll go over these 2 things.
Get out of my chair. Hey, look, there's a, no, it's me too, my purse is down there.
First is the buyer seller kind of stats for 2023. So this goes from sales made and questions surveyed from June 2022 to June 2023. So NAR just released this. This is really good information. There was a link in the Bluegrass Realtors. Oh, Yuki, you looked at it already. She's like, yeah. There was a link in the email from Bluegrass Realtors that took you to all of this information. So we just kind of put together the introduction, and then most importantly, on the last couple pages, these are some of your stats. This is the education. This is the knowledge. This is things that your people will find interesting about the industry, because they're facts. They're not opinions. And so it's a good thing to become familiar with some of them. There's a lot in here about first-time home buyers, the aging population. Read through that, highlight things that you really like, incorporate that into your presentations and the conversations with your buyers and sellers. And this is adding value by educating yourself about the industry.
Just a really interesting stat that I just saw on the last page for home selling and real estate professionals. So obviously this is before the lawsuit happened, but it says 75% of sellers reported that they provided the agent's compensation. And that is of homes on the market, not the resale value. So how were the agents getting paid if only 75% of sellers reported that they provided the agent's compensation?
Yeah,
Because
Am I reading it wrong?
if you look down at how many FISBOs there were, so that's probably incorporated into that statistic.
But it says home selling and real estate, so this is for real estate agents. If it was on the market, typical sellers maybe it is included in all sellers, but
Yeah, there will be some for sale by owner stats in here as well. Hi Lori, thanks for coming.
bye.
So yeah, read through these. I mean, this is great information. It's a lot of it crammed into a couple
But
pages.
that's okay, I think some people like it.
I love reading this stuff because I feel like it gives me things that I talk to my people about and I educate them and they know what's normal because they don't know. They have no idea what's normal. Part of my buyer consult is going over the contract. I make it, print it off, make a sample. I write sample on it with a highlighter. I go through and I highlight different pieces of that contract and we go over it with the steps of buying or selling because it takes you through all of those steps. And it gives us a chance to talk about the expectations and what to expect at the appraisal time or the inspection time. So, your consult, especially for buyers, should at least, and sellers really, should at least be an hour to hour and a half. If you're really arming them with information to make good decisions, because ultimately we're the guide. They're the ones, it's their home. I just lost my train of thought for something else. So I go over that contract, but I find it to be very calming because you manage that expectation. If they've never put eyes on that contract and they're already nervous about buying their first home, and especially the new one, and you lay out all those pages, they are like, whoa.
Well, it's overwhelming.
So if you can break it down piece by piece in that buyer consult, it doesn't seem so scary. They've seen it before, they get to take it home, they get to review it,
They can call us if they've got any questions and they,
Right. So, and then the second piece, I have lots of folks asking about this. Not just Angie. But this is our lifestyle affiliated business arrangement disclosure statement. And it doesn't matter what commission plan you're on, you need to be filling this out and presenting it at your listing paperwork signing and at your buyer consults. I always do it at the buyer consult. I don't like to surprise anybody with this because it is additional fees that we charge in our business. So for example, let's do the DDM, which is the digital document management fee. So this is the fee.
We can write on these, right?
Yes, this is your copy.
Okay.
This is the fee that is the client fee that they pay at closing. And it has a price range here of $149 to $595. I personally would like to see this form adjusted to where I could go in there and write my own fee and not have a range.
That way they don't see it.
Yes. Because I think it will help going forward. When somebody says, what's your digital document management fee? Well, long and short, I explain to people that everything's gone paperless.
Right.
We have to pay for storage. So that is a fee that we have to pass on to the consumer. However, in April, if you can't find your closing statement or you need whatever form for taxes, you can call me anytime and I can send that over to you. It's stored forever. So that's kind of how I explain that digital document fee. And you can put in there what you want to charge to your clients. I think typically I do 200. Close your file. I use Close Your File. I use Amy.
Can you explain that to me?
Yes. So she's our transaction coordinator. I tell my folks we are required by the Kentucky Real Estate Commission to be compliant in our documents. So she ensures that everything's on the up and up and that we're not breaking any real estate laws and that we're getting all the paperwork signed and we're explaining it to you as the consumer. So this is a fee to ensure that we stay compliant with the commission.
Thank you.
And so I usually put in there $300.
So you're
then-
adding that $300 on top of the $200?
Yes.
See, this is where I think, well,
So then my folks are paying an extra $500 and an admin fee at closing. So whether you're limitless, whether you're opportunity, whether you are growth, you can add this fee in there. Now, the other piece of that is if you don't use Amy, shame on you because your life would be better. Secondly, your DDM fee could be higher. You could make that $300 and you can take that extra cash and have that pay for your postcards that you're going out to show your listing just closed.
but
And-
how do you, she knows I'm having a problem with it. How do you, when somebody looks at this and they see, okay, I can charge you anywhere from $149 to $595?
You can say, I eat the majority of it and I'm only gonna charge you $149. We have that option in our office.
What I do when I present that document to my clients is I strike through that number and I physically put in what I'm charging them.
Yes.
So what are you, I'm just curious, like what?
It honestly depends. It changes transaction to transaction because
Depends on
there
how
are
complicated they
there
are.
are multiple reasons why I charge what I charge.
Right.
But
Depending too on
usually it is somewhere between $150 and $400.
That blows my mind. I don't know why that.
But you know,
Otherwise, that's the $595
huh?
document, like, that's.
I mean, you can say typically it's $595 for the digital document management fee, but I'm
So if
gonna,
we're paying it ourselves, though, we're only paying $149.
yes.
Plus.
I'm just giving you conversation or scripts to, that you can use to explain it.
Do we need to be using these things?
I've never used one.
I've never used these, so.
I haven't either.
It's a good idea, but.
I think it's a good idea because then when they're at closing and they're like, well, what's this $149 fee? You don't want them to have questions. You want them to know exactly what to expect.
Right.
I mean, these are going on no matter what on the closing.
Mhm.
And so
The
it's
Does it
$149.
say?
Or it comes out of your paycheck. Either or, you may be eating it.
I think I am.
But the-
It went up $100. It went up $100. which-
Does it say
that's
admin fee though on the closing
Yeah.
disclosure? Yeah. So it's not gonna say the DDM or whatever, it'll say admin fee.
Yes.
Not necessarily.
No?
On the closing statement, it might say digital document.
Depending on the title company?
Depending on the title company.
Okay.
Can you, adjust that? Can you request that it says whatever?
Yes, you
Admin fee or
can.
whatever? Yeah, okay.
But I'm okay with it saying digital document storage because that's how I present it to the client.
Yeah, and that would maybe resonate with more people, like that makes sense to me, like, yeah, you keep track of
And
that.
it's part of my presentation, like it's just straight up, this is what happens.
Yeah. So in the years that I have been doing it this way, I've never had a client like totally kick it out and say, no, I'm not paying that. I've had to go back and explain what it was a second time, because it had been a while since we had done it in the presentation versus closing. So if you script yourself to say the same thing to every single person, it gets really easy. There's nothing to be afraid of with it. Especially in this day and age, if we're going to be accepting commissions as a buyer agent that is a reduction, this can help supplement a little bit. Instead of you paying for these fees any longer, have your clients pay them. It's part of the transaction. It's a part of doing business.
It's true. She gets it all, or you have to take it.
Are you helping her?
Trying to.
I cannot wrap my head around this. I'm sorry if there are people watching.
No, it's
I cannot
okay.
wrap my head around this.
It's just the cost of doing business. And if you're gonna start representing buyers at 2.5%, 1%, are you gonna wanna eat these fees?
What if they're poor?
Well,
That's up to you.
You can pay.
yeah, I mean, it
I'm
is.
paying it.
I have poor clients sometimes.
Here's the other thing.
Me too, and I know.
If you have a-
commission too.
If you have a client beating you up on your commission, you can say, listen, I can't take a reduction in commission. However, this is all I can do, is I can waive this for you.
Okay.
So it shows that you're giving something too. It
Or don't say
creates
wait,
leverage.
you could say, I will pay this part out
Right.
of my commission at the end.
Yes.
So that way,
That's what's really happening.
yeah,
Yes.
that is what's happening.
But the most we'll be paying if we're not using Amy's 149.
Mm-hmm.
I use 149 automatically comes out if we do nothing. Is that right?
Right.
249.
That's the digital document.
249?
Yeah.
249.
Amy's got a couple different
Oh, does it matter what you
Processes.
are?
well, no, like she can just do paperwork uploads from Skyslope to Dotloop, or she can do the contract to close. The contract to close is a little more expensive because she helps schedule your termite inspections, your home inspections. She fills out the realtor sheet, takes care of all the title company communication, sets up closing, does all that back end stuff so that you guys can be out talking with people, setting appointments, generating business. And I'm a control freak, and it was hard for me to turn it over, but now I don't know that I ever want to do it again. Because she's fantastic, and it allows me to spend my time doing stuff here at the office, or, working on marketing for my business.
Oh, so it's the second one that's optional, the first one's automatic,
Yes.
okay, got it,
Yes.
optional.
Any other questions about this form? Okay, we'll let Whitney chew.
No, that was
Oh,
you answered.
okay. Anything else that you guys want to talk about, or questions that you have? Do you all feel like this has been helpful?
This has been great.
So I know early January we're having another broker forum at L-Bar. They're going to be talking more about the merging of GLAR and Bluegrass Realtors, and if that's going to be a possibility. So, just read those emails that come out from Bluegrass Realtors.
How does that, are they saying what the benefit is for GLAR and us?
Just accessibility, or what is it?
I guess. Carol and I'll go to the broker forum in early January and be able to come and report back some information and kind of gauge where they're at.
Do you think there would be a raise in yearly dues?
I don't know. I
I
have
think
no
we
idea
changed
what
the
to
contract, have
expect.
one uniform contract.
I think that's the
What
biggest
happens?
thing too.
Well,
Yeah,
right.
because GLAR's
Their
contract
contract is
is,
so different.
oh, it's not good.
So,
It's not good.
it just depends on who you talk to. Everybody's got an opinion, and some like this one, some like that one. I don't know. There's going to be more to come, but make sure you read those emails from Bluegrass Realtors, and make sure you read our what's going on in the office emails. You should be getting those weekly. We do have Santa coming up December 13th
Do we have any
from
people signed up for that?
3:30 to 5:30. We're gonna have a hot chocolate bar, crafts, Santa, a small gift for the kids, but we need you all to RSVP
I already did.
yourself and how many kids you're bringing and what gender.
I have a male cat. Can you come?
I have a girl dog.
And then Emily Doyle with the home warranty company. Which one is she with?
America's preferred.
America's Preferred. Thank you, Karen. I know the initials, but can never remember the name. America's
she was
Preferred.
back with
She's going to be sponsoring it, so it's going to be a lot of fun. It's just 2 hours.
Is that
We're-
for our, like, to invite potential clients to come to, or just for
Um,
office people?
Mostly our agents, but if you have kids, grandkids, neighbors, nieces, nephews, you're
Like I bring
welcome
my
to bring
nephew, because
them.
my little granddaughter lives 2 hours away,
We've
so.
got a photographer.
Yes, I was just getting ready to say.
To get a
Yes.
picture with Santa, maybe you with Santa, to send pictures to
Yes.
your client, you know,
Absolutely.
holiday card.
So it's going to be a great time just to come. It's short, it's brief, it's going to be jam-packed of fun.